Welcome back to the Daughters of the Moon podcast. Mom and I are both grateful that you can join us for another week, and we're super excited today. Big shout out to her cousin Emily. She introduced us to Pam Sears. Pam has been a professional psychic medium since 1995 when she left corporate world to focus on her true purpose of being a healer and bringing forth messages from our loved ones who have crossed over into the light. She's also an author of three books, Whispers of the White Dove, Heart of the White Dove, and her first children's book, No No Nap. I would like the, um, and so welcome, Pam. It's exciting to have
Thank
you on the
you.
podcast with us.
Thank you.
So it sounds like you've been doing this for quite a while. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your journey and how you became an author? And I love the title of your children's book. That's cute.
Yeah, that's cute.
Thank you. Thank you. It's really the children's book is about how my grandson meets his spirit guides, but it's about not wanting to take a nap, throwing a temper tantrum, and then they show up to help him. So that was my main goal for writing that particular book for him. And, in my mid 30s, I have always had the voices. I kind of called it my other mind. Okay. So my mom didn't, she didn't quite grasp what was happening. She would always say, "Oh, there she goes again, talking to herself." And, she's just she's an odd child. And I never thought anything of it. Doesn't everybody talk to people? And I didn't really I knew that it was there and it helped me, but I didn't begin to really understand more until I was getting into my late 20s, 30s, and things began to change a little bit. And I realized I was supposed to be walking this journey. So I didn't have development circles. There wasn't anything available back then. Here I am, 72 years old. I'm giving my age. And so it was really up to me and my guides. And so they helped me, you know, hone in on things. And I was just working with neighbors and friends and referral of friends. And then Spirit said, it's time to go social media type stuff. And I'm like, I'm not doing it. But Spirit had other plans and I was kind of thrown into it. So back in the old MSN days of the chat rooms, that's where things began, that particular journey. Although I had gone to massage college, I became a massage therapist, worked with chiropractors, and then actually there were messages coming through when I was doing my healing work. So it was really neat to incorporate a little bit of both messages, um, therapeutic touch, massage. It just all seemed to go together. So that was kind of the start of everything. And then COVID came along, it made it even more so. I did a lot of other social media, but when COVID hit and everyone was in lockdown, is when things really took off. People would get on all social media. What else were we going to do, right? So that propelled me into the new area of the TikTok and the Instagram and all of that.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, and it's interesting how when you're doing one modality, it's like if you have that intuitiveness, it's funny how that just kind of comes through. And I know Mom and I were just talking the other day when I'm doing any kind of Reiki or past life regression, I'm always like, just so you know, I am also intuitive. So if I get a message, do you want it? Because you just don't know when they're going to bring that forward.
Correct. And I also incorporated, I moved from a chiropractor and I became a massage therapist for hospice
Oh,
for nine
Nice.
years. And so that hospice work was incredible. And then also being a medium, there was there was so much on that journey that I learned a lot. I helped a lot of people. And that is when I really began to not be afraid of death, because there is no death.
right. And what do you believe happens once our soul leaves our body, so to speak?
None of us really actually know, even those who've had a near-death experience, nobody really knows the full level. But in all my 30 some odd years, the messages that have come through have always been there's only love on the other side. There's no judgment. There's no other human emotions. And I've also been told by spirit that we do in fact have a life review, and that we sit down with our council, our team, and we go over how things were. Um, Now, how that plays out, I mean, I tell people nobody gets away with karma. There's always one way of balancing things.
Right.
But I'm of the understanding that even when we're there going through our life review, and we might have done some things we weren't really excited about, there's no judgment. There's no judgment. It's just more of a learning opportunity, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense actually, because I think that that's more just here's maybe where you didn't make the right choice, and if you're coming back to try this game again of Earth, maybe next time you won't make those choices, right? And
Yeah.
so I think what you said is it's a learning experience opportunity for us to just really reflect on how we've lived our lives, and have we actually lived a good life, or did we just kind of exist? Because I think so many of us just exist.
Yeah, that's true.
Correct.
That's very true. Yeah. Get an extra turn to try it again. Make it better.
And people, I recently, when I was on one of my social media lives, and I love to do Q&A, there was a person that just said, why in the hell would we want to come back to this place? And I said, I can tell you that there's a long line of spirits waiting to come back, because this is where it's at. This is the school. This is the learning
Yeah.
happening. And so I said, you can sit there and say, I'm not ever coming back, but I bet you will. I'll just bet.
Yeah. What's your God? Well, you have a different perspective from the other side, right? Because like you said, it's full of love. And so you don't have that humanist stuff that we have here that we're trying to muddle through.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so do you see spirit, hear spirit? What is your way of connecting?
For many years, it was more of the clairsentience. It was almost like, and I knew that they were there. I felt the energy of them coming up. So that was my first experience. But I think I've always had claircognizance, that just a knowing somehow. And, things just come out of my mouth and I don't even, I don't even think about it. So I don't see them there, but they do show me in my mind, like a little typewriter across here. I don't hear them. I mean, I do hear my higher self quite loudly. Thank you very much. But I mean, it's more of more of telepathy back and forth. And I find that I had a client this morning, and she brought her boyfriend in because his own grandma came through, the baby that had crossed over. And he said, I'm still a little skeptical, but you've given me enough to maybe open my mind a little bit. And so skepticism is very healthy.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Yes. Just
Yes, it
be
is.
open. Yes.
Yeah.
And I think too, sometimes it keeps us aware of what's going on too. When somebody's skeptical like that, it also brings our awareness out more. We pay attention, or
Yes.
I do. I know I do. Yeah. So cool.
Yes. Just to open up that mind just a little bit.
And so if you had advice for people if they were wanting to open their minds a little bit more, what do you do? What's something that you do to open your mind, or what do you think people could do to start, just being a little more receptive?
Now, I will say this, nobody needs me or any other medium to connect with their loved ones. They can do it themselves. And I encourage them to be open and communicate. And one of the things that I recommend to people, I am not a person that sits in that lotus blossom uh, yoga position and hums and does meditation. The ADD, ADHD brain says that's not going to work. I do walking meditation out in nature.
Mhm.
So you're away from whatever is going on in the world. You're just open to your surroundings. And that's when we can get our most downloads and our most information. So I encourage people to get away from the fray, preferably near some water if possible, and then just be open.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And that's something that I've been sharing with like some clients of mine is that because I'm like, you probably should meditate. They're like, I can't meditate. The one girl saying, right? I have ADHD, I can't meditate. I'm like, okay, well then let me offer you this. What about when you're doing dishes, just really focus on the bubbles and washing the dishes? And she's like, she's giving me that look, right? And I'm like, yes, but see, that tricks your mind and then it quiets it just for a
Exactly.
second. And she's like, oh, I can do that. I said, yeah, everybody thinks meditation is, exactly what you said, sit on a lotus and like, that's great if you can do it.
And,
But
I tell people that singing is another way.
mhm,
Those that are very open to singing, that's also that vibration.
yeah,
Yes.
And I also encourage people to pay attention to their dreams, especially if they're really wanting to open themselves up. They have these questions, they're seeking some things on their spiritual journey. That is the time to ask the universe and to pay attention to what the universe is giving us in our dreams.
yes. And
Yes,
we can ask questions before we go to bed. I usually forget that
yes.
part.
But I will say, make sure that you have a pad and a pen next to the bed because I always say to my higher self, my guides, if it's something really important, can you wake me up so that I can write it down? So it may be 2 o'clock, maybe 3 o'clock. So I got into the habit of, that happens a lot. I will wake up at odd hours to write something down and then go back to sleep.
Yeah.
Yes. I also do that, but sometimes I can't read my writing in the morning. I'm like, what does that say? But
Yes,
usually it's enough, but usually even just a couple of words is enough just to like when you sit back and think about them, then for me anyways, like the whole dream will come rushing back and I'm like, oh, okay, that's great. And then
yes.
I dream journal. So yeah.
Okay. And sometimes I'll remind my clients, you may just wake up with a feeling and that's it. There may not be any other, but that I want you to acknowledge that feeling and see what the day holds for you, holding on to that and see where that leads.
So what would you say to somebody that if somebody they loved passed over and they were trying to communicate with them and they feel like they're making it up or like, what if this vision is just something I've imagined inside my mind?
I would tell them it's a matter of trust and having faith. Another thing that I would tell them is, have you ever been minding your own business and all of a sudden your loved one pops into your head and they go, yeah, I said, that's them. That is them saying hello. You're not asking, you're just minding your own business. And I also tell them, talk, since they hear us all, they're
Yeah.
around us all the time, ask them to give you in your face signs. Very something you can be specific or you can just say, hey, this is what I do. I really need an in my face sign and I'm just going to get out of the way and see what unfolds. It could be coming in so many different forms, but it's going to
Yeah.
happen. You're going to get your sign.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I would definitely agree with that. We just recently lost my aunt and mom's sister,
Oh,
and so but it was beautiful because she came to both of us in different ways, and I mean, it's nice because we trust in that. And that was sort of my prompting to that question was because, you know, sometimes when it happens, you're like, was
Yeah.
that real?
And
Was it not?
big hugs to both of you. Now, one of the things that I want to just, because it's at the top of my brain, is people say, well, how do I know if it's a message? How do I know it's not my own brain and
Mind.
ego? So I tell them this: if you're asking for a question, you're asking for, say, spiritual guidance, the answer is just like that. And sometimes the answer comes while you're asking the question. And
Yeah.
that's knowing that that spirit, if there's a delay, that's your own ego answering.
Yeah. Yeah. True enough. Yeah. I know I got up in the middle of the night and I was looking at her painting. She did paintings and that's when she
Oh,
came to me. Yeah. So it was really cool. You know it's them too because their personality is still the way they were when they were here, right? A lot of times.
yes.
Yeah. So she had a cute way.
That's a good point, because if you want to know for sure that that's your loved one, if say you had a dad who was a grumpy man and he was mean and everybody kept saying, I don't like your dad. And then somebody comes to you and goes, oh, your dad is here. He said he was so loving and warm. It's like, oh, that's they're gonna come through in that personality of how they were on earth. He's not cranky or mean anymore, but he's going to try to come through to let you know that's how he was on earth.
Yeah. And that does make sense. What about smells? Like, do you get like smells or anything for yourself when
I
people are
do,
coming
I
through?
do. Um, I I do get a lot of um for me, I have a cigarette smoke. And like grandpa used to always chew that juicy fruit gum. I mean, you just I sometimes I'll get a taste in my mouth and it's like I just automatically know. So the smells are important. And I tell that to my clients as well. If you're standing in the kitchen and nobody's smoking and you have a whiff of smoke, if grandpa was a chain smoker, whoever you think of at that moment is probably the one that's around you at that time.
Yeah, that's true. I know I was smelling coffee for like a couple days and my
Oh,
sister loved coffee. It was her favorite thing. So it was like
yes.
almost before she even left this world, I was smelling the coffee. So yeah, cool.
Yes. Yes. So there's so many different ways. Maybe grandma had a particular cologne or, or whatever the perfume is. Even if you didn't like the smell, that's how they show up. It was interesting because I had a session with a client. I wasn't aware that her little granddaughter was sitting by her. And I said, your grandma's talking about the pearls. And she's like, oh my God, my granddaughter is sitting in the corner holding her pearls in her
Wow.
hand. And so when things like that happen, I get so excited for the client because that's a validation that she's around you at that moment in time.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And it's really neat when you get stuff like that. Like, and I think it probably astonishes the people too. It's like, how did you know that, right? Like, I know you're a medium, but how did you know that?
And that's the whole purpose of being evidence-based, is that our job is to bring forward that evidence and the facts, not something you can go Google or look up anywhere, but facts and information, especially if they said you just get a Costco run. And they're like, how do they know that? Because they're with us. I
Yeah.
love it when they come in and talk about that stuff.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really nice gift. It's a nice gift when they do that for us.
It is. It is. Yes.
And so do you have like a council that like you have your higher self, but do you have like angels or counsel or something that comes to you as well to help you with different things, either in
I
personal?
do, I know that in all these years, and there's a beautiful book called Journey of Souls by Dr. Michael Newton that is for anyone who's wanting to get further on this journey. Um, it's sometimes it's a hard read, but it's so good. And he's talking about how and he would take people to the other side to actually meet themselves and the council. And he's talking about how, you know, what's the word I'm trying to just say? It's like we all get assigned our main guide at birth, and then we're assigned a guardian angel. They stay with us the whole journey, and usually are there when we cross over. Other guides can be added later, or they can come and go depending on what it is that we need in our journey. And I firmly believe in animal guides as well.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
Yes.
Too. We used to read Ted Andrews because he was so good at talking to animals. And we, for a while there, it was like our little Bible that we carried around with us because anything you saw sort of thing was generating something from that. It was cool.
I tell my clients also, um, especially if you see something 3 times, that is like in your face. I can see a spirit, I can see an animal like 3 times in a week or in a day, repeated numbers over and over again. So whenever something happens 3 times, your peeps are really trying to get a hold of you. Yes.
So when you wrote your books, did they come in and help you write your books?
What's interesting is my first one, Whispers of the White Dove. In fact, that's my spirit animal, is the white dove.
Okay.
Ever
Nice.
since I was young, I wrote poetry. Ever since I was young, I wrote poetry. So I did it, and the first 2 books are an accumulation of things I've written through the years. But the guides helped me organize, get things straight. How did I want to do this? How did I want to do that? And so definitely between them and my higher self. And what's interesting is I never thought of, nobody's interested in poetry. Okay. Not only a select few. And I said, nobody's interested in my poetry but me. And I thought, but I might publish someday just to leave it behind for the family. And then I ended up, during working on hospice, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I sat down and said, life's too short. I'm gonna publish. And it just kind of snowballed from there. And
Nice.
it's every day's a gift. That's how I see it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree
it
with you.
is.
And it's funny, like when my aunt passed, it was like, well, one, I didn't think that I would grieve the way that I did, but either way, what it really said to me was, why are you waiting on all these things to do? Why, like, tomorrow isn't promised, so get out and do these things that you love and quit holding yourself back from accomplishing the things that you want to have accomplished because it could be gone tomorrow, right? And
Correct. I mean, I'm an avid hiker. I was a volunteer park ranger at Montezuma Well for 5 years. And it's like people would say, I just can't believe you. I mean, but what would you have me do? I am here on this earth to help people, to bring forth comfort, to validate we go somewhere, and to live,
mhm, yes.
really live.
And I think that's a message that our loved ones bring to us a lot of times too, is like don't die having these regrets. Like live your life.
Yeah.
There was another of my clients, and she kept saying, I need you to ask my family or my dad or mom, what do I do with all this stuff? We don't know. They left so quickly. We didn't really. And I said, they don't care. They don't care. Give it away. Give it to somebody that can utilize it. If there's somebody in the family that's wanting something of theirs, they don't have those attachments anymore.
No, I agree.
Do you think as humans that we become too attached to the things that we have in our life?
Yep,
And if we lived
I
maybe from
do.
lived more for experience, then the material stuff would be a better way to live?
Yes, and it's incredibly sad when you have a loved one that's coming through going, oh man, I blew it. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. I promised myself I was going to do that, and I didn't do any of it. So they're on their perspective saying, you have the opportunity to do things. Do it and don't ever look back.
I love that. I love that because I do think they guide us and show us our way and warn us or be like, "Hello, are you paying attention?" You know?
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
They do.
So what has been like I guess the most touching reading you've done, if you can share that, or like one of something that really sticks out in your mind?
Well, I have several hospice stories, but there was a gentleman and I was doing a lot of lymphatic work because hospice patients, they swell, there's a lot of discomfort. And so I was trained also in the lymphatic, and I had been taking care of this elderly gentleman. And I would show up, and he would always say, turn on the cooking shows. So I would go and turn on the cooking shows, and we would watch that and chat and talk. And one day I got up to turn on the cooking show, and I felt a presence. And in my mind, I said, who is this? And she said, this is Barbara. And I'm like, okay, now I'm an ethical psychic medium. I don't go spewing things out to people, not ethical, no consent. But I
Yeah.
knew that that was something important. So I just let things play out the way Spirit wanted them to. And when we got into the session, he said to me, did I ever show you a picture of my wife? And I said, no, you didn't. And he said, she passed 5 years ago. Her name is Barbara.
Oh wow.
And within a couple of weeks, he took his new journey to the other side. So she was letting know, I'm here. I'm here. And I mean, I would have loved to have said, oh, Barbara's here. But, we don't know where somebody's at mentally or if they're
Yeah.
believers or non-believers. So yeah, it's not cool to just do that stuff out. But that was a cool story. And I'll share one real quick because it involves a pet. Okay.
Yes,
Our
please.
pets very much in tune. They do cross over. There was a heart patient who was doing a lot of struggling, and I was helping. I would go there 2 or 3 times a week, and he had a beautiful dog that was just always playful. And his wife had told me, I had a dream. The dog came to me in a dream in a panic. And I was like, well, hey, what's going on? What do you need? What's happening? So that next morning, I picked up the phone and I called, and his wife answered, and she said, well, he passed in the middle of the night, but I panicked and I called the paramedics when they came in to help him. My dog was just beside himself and was, panicked. And we had to lock her into a closet. And, she said, I know she came to you for help. Like, my dad is having some issues. Can you come help him? So I remembered that story for a long, long time.
Mm,
Mm, yeah.
that
Yeah, you
Yeah.
do remember those ones. Yeah. Yeah.
it's beautiful, really, how they do come to us and show themselves to us. And I think it's so great that, as society, I think we're moving more towards that. We're all becoming a little more telepathic. We're all becoming a little more intuitive when we trust it. And I love that thought of that to myself.
And we are, I tell people, we are all born psychic. We're all born with that internal GPS. The
Mhm.
whole point is, are we in tune with that? Do we listen to that? Because it's never wrong.
Yeah.
It's never
Yeah.
wrong.
Trusting ourselves. It's all about trust, right?
Yes. But I do think that there's this shift of energy happening and vibration happening.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Uh, and it's involving everyone. So you can either go with the flow or fight. And it's um what's that phrase? Resistance is futile, but I think as a whole group on this earth, it's happening simultaneous. We have opportunities to really grow and expand.
Yes.
Mhm. Do you think that we live more than one life during this life? Like on alternate
More than one,
reality? Like an alternate
yes,
reality?
I actually do believe that. We come in fragments. Okay, so there's a fragment in this meat suit, is what I call it, because the whole cannot fit in these meat suits; they would explode. So there's part of us that always remains on the other side, which is the higher self, and there's
Mhm.
fragments that are living alternate realities. I firmly believe that. Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Can we tap into those, do you think, our alternate realities, like ourself, if we use our higher self to do it?
Yes, yes. And think about this. I think that some of it happens in our dreams.
Hmm. I believe that. Yeah.
Now, can they be memories, flashbacks of another lifetime? Absolutely. But it can also be not a flashback, but just another aspect. And I believe that I woke up thinking, I felt like that was me, but not really me.
Right.
So yes, and I think that we all have that capability of tapping into that. Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. I just,
Yeah.
I don't know where that came from, but it just popped into my mind. So,
But it's okay.
well, and I've been reading a lot of, I just finished reading Diana Cooper's The Golden Future. And so she does talk about a lot of how we're going to move forward in the future in the next, 20 so years or stuff. And, that same thing, this
Yes.
telepathy and, really being able to talk to our higher self and people trusting that a lot more and, disease going down and all these different things because we're going to be living a different life. What's your thoughts
Correct.
on that?
And yes, I absolutely agree. Now, I think part of the change is coming from these new wee ones being born on this earth right now.
Hmm.
Yeah.
My two grandsons, they're tuned in. They're tuned in to a level that we're not even privy to, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
And, of course, I'm sure you've all heard the stories that, they'll talk about saying, well, that's when I was with a different mom and whatever. It's like they're born with those memories, but I do believe that they're born with a lot more of that psychic ability than we ever were.
Yeah,
Yeah. I have
I
a story about that. When Kim was pregnant for her second child, I was my hands on her tummy and asking him, hey, let me see you, little guy, sort of thing. And he, honest to God, he turned his head and all of a sudden I see him looking at me and he just looked straight at me like, who are you? And it was such a neat experience. You know, he totally engaged with me. He saw me. And I thought, how lucky is that? So he is also very intuitive too in this world that we are in now, or he's in now too. So, but it was pretty cool. It was one of those experiences that I'll never forget, right? that he managed to engage with me like that.
That's fascinating. I love to hear things like that.
Yeah, I was overjoyed.
I would have been.
Yeah. And I agree with you. I think these young children are coming in, and like I know my one grandson, he's 5, and he, he is very in tune and he sees things and senses things. And like his mom is always texting me, being like, "What's up?"
Right.
I'm like, well,
Yes.
ask him these questions, right? Because here's how you're going to grow his strengths. And so I guess
Engage.
that leads me to the question of how do you think that with these young beings coming in now that are so much more advanced than we are, how can we foster that in them?
One of the things that I encourage is not to show fear. It's like in the back of my no nap, there's a page because he does meet his spirit guides. In the back of the book, there's a page dedicated to parents. If we don't, why would we be afraid? There's nothing to fear when our little ones are coming up trying to explain a story. Be open, ask them to engage more. Well, why do you think that happened? Where do you think you were? And that will encourage them to share more. So
Yeah,
many times kids get shut down because parents are afraid or don't want to deal with something like that. So the kid shuts down. I think the kids, these beautiful little beings, if we're open and encouraging, they'll stay open and
yeah,
they won't get shut down.
yeah. I agree. I agree. I remember even with Emily, that was watching you all the time. She was just little, and she said she was looking at the tree, and I said, "Do you see those holes in the trees there?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "There's fairies that live in there, you know." And she goes, "Really?" And we talked about that because I believe in fairies. And not that I
Yes,
was trying to push it on her that she should believe in it too. But I think all I was doing at that point was saying to her, let your mind go there because you might
right.
just see something that's kind of fun. And that's how I,
Correct. Correct.
you know,
Yes.
yeah,
And it's like raising my kids before I really was fully open to this purpose and such. They had imaginary friends. Well, I don't. Now we look back, I don't believe in imaginary friends. I believe that that was somebody that they were with and
yes,
talked to, and I think it was probably. I think a lot of it is their own spirit guide on their level helping them.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I do too. I do
I,
too.
I would agree with that. I've actually was reflecting on that just the other day when I was driving, and I was just thinking like back when I was probably about 10, I always believed that there was people that lived on top of the clouds, and it was like a kingdom up there, but they all lived on the clouds, and then I had a little purple pink horse that followed me around. That was my imaginary one. So now I reflect back on that and I'm like, maybe back then I even knew there was beings out there, right? And that there was all these magical beings that I had no clue at 10 that so it's funny how you reflect back.
Yeah, I agree. I used to volunteer at a child crisis shelter. I was kind of one of them, and they trusted me because I had had a lot of that trauma. That's why I love being trauma informed and what I do now. And we were coming back from a little field trip, and I was sitting next to this little guy, and he looked out, and it was getting a little darker, and he looked outside and he got really, really scared. And I said, "What is it? What do you see?" And he goes, "There's a dragon." And I see him and I'm so scared and he's flying alongside the bus. And he was just petrified. And I said, "I don't think he's there to scare you. I think he's there to help you. Ask him his name. Ask him if he has something to say." Of course, the other volunteers are like, "Yeah, there goes Pam again." Pam. But I got him to start talking. And how do we know he wasn't seeing a dragon? People say, well, they don't exist. How do we know they're not real? Okay.
That's true.
And he changed his attitude and he's like, he is there to protect me. So I wasn't going to sit there and let this little kid be petrified when
Right.
that was probably someone that's there to take care of him. So, hey, if somebody wants to call me cuckoo, whatever, I don't care.
That's what I figure too. I'm with
It's
you on that
okay.
one.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's been so much fun talking with you. Can you tell everybody where they can find you besides here on our podcast?
My website is pamsears.com. Okay. And at the top of my website is my Linktree link. That has everything at the top of my website. You can send me a message through in the contact area of my website or Pam at pamsears.com. You can bypass all of that. I'll answer questions. And the link tree is the best one, really, because it has everything listed there.
Nice.
Perfect.
Very nice. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, we so appreciate you being on with us
Thank
today.
you.
Yes,
It was fun. It was
it,
fun.
it has been. So, if you had a final thought to leave with us and our followers, what would it be?
The one thing that no matter what happens, and I'm on social media or I'm talking to people, I end it with this sentence. Not only be kind to others, but include yourself in the kindness.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's
That
a
is a good
perfect
one.
message. Yes,
Yes.
that is a perfect message. Well, thank you so much again. We really do appreciate you. Right back to you.
Thank
And
you.
it's been a lot of fun. So,
We'll see you again.
yeah. And
Thank
Bye,
you.
Pam.
Bye.
you're welcome. And everybody else, we'll see you on the next one.
You bet.